So you want to have a healthy relationship and you have no idea what that even means or how to get there. Maybe like me, you had, let's just say, a less than perfect childhood and you didn't have any role models to show you what a healthy relationship looks like. So this video is going to explain, and it's going to be the beginning of how, just describing what a healthy attachment style can look like, and perhaps today you can take a few steps in that direction. I am going to discuss 15 steps of what a healthy person, a healthy and secure attachment style looks like, and how we can slowly begin to get there. I'm also going to discuss how securely attached individuals got to be the way they want to be. This is just a matter of interest for those of you who want to know, like, what was the setup? Maybe you just want to look at your own childhood to figure out, like, oh, this didn't happen in my childhood. This is why I'm experiencing these type of problems. Or perhaps you want to look at your partner, because we always like to spy on our partners a little bit and figure them out, which is never a bad thing, right? The more understanding we have of somebody, the better. Or perhaps you are a parent and then you want to know, how do I parent my child and give them something that I have never received? Okay, so first I'm going to go over the 15 points because that's why you clicked on this video, and then I'm going to go on the other details of how the parenting style looked like to get to this attachment style. So welcome to this channel. My name is Patricia Mahotska. If you're new here, I'm a relationship coach and I'm the owner of the Love and Thrive School. Without further ado, let's get straight into what is a secure attachment. How are we going to mimic that and look for that in our relationships, and perhaps act as if we are this person already. So number one, this is not in any particular order, so this is not the most important point, but I've just like brainstormed it in this way. Number one, there is responsibility. So I am able to take responsibility for myself, whether that means I take responsibility for my emotions, my actions, how I'm showing up in my workspace. I take responsibility, and therefore it is easier for my partner to work with me, which takes me to the next point. Responsibility and accountability go hand in hand, okay? When I take responsibility, I am able to admit, like, hey, I am human. I am doing the best that I can in my life, and sometimes I'm going to be messy. Sometimes I'm going to make mistakes. Sometimes I'm going to trigger others. And accountability means then I am going to own up to what I have done, and I'm going to listen to my partner. And if my partner says, like, hey, your actions have hurt me, I can then take that in and go like, oh, I can see how that has hurt you, right? Maybe in my world, I wasn't planning to do that. I didn't want to hurt you, but I'm not going to gaslight you, or I'm not going to deny you your reality. I am going to listen with empathy and see, is it suitable for me and with my own value system to change the way I'm acting? Perhaps if it's something small, like, you know what, you didn't do the dishes and that has hurt me. I can see that this is a pattern in our relationship. The dishes are not done a lot of the time and I feel like I'm overburdened and I don't have support, and I feel like you don't care for me in the relationship, okay? So the partner brings this complaint to the secure attached person, and the secure attached individual can go like, oh, sure, but I didn't do that, okay? I didn't do the dishes. I have been maybe a little bit tired. Maybe I have been a little bit lazy. And they can take accountability and go like, yeah, this is not something that is going against my values in any way to help my partner. Securely attached people want to work with and collaborate with other people to create harmony in the relationship. So they don't have a problem with going like, yeah, you know what, I haven't been doing that. Can we maybe work out a schedule where, you know, we do it alternating days, or like the days when I'm really busy at work, I'm working really late. Do you mind doing the dishes? And then I can do them maybe on the weekend, or whatever the plan is. They can look and say, okay, what is possible for me? And then negotiate those points, okay? Which means, number 3, they have good boundaries. That means they don't have these rigid, super rigid boundaries where it's like, it's only my way or the highway. Like, no, I don't want to do the dishes because I have been very busy at work, and don't bother with me with that. Like, you have more time. Maybe you don't work and it's your responsibility. Okay? That means the boundary is not compassionate. It's not considerate of the other person. On the other hand, they don't completely neglect themselves or abandon themselves and say like, oh yes, I'm going to do the dishes every single night. And because they know that this is not going to honor them, and it's not going to be maybe possible for them to do that. So they can't stick to that, which means that they are going to set themselves up for failure. Or if they do it, eventually they're going to get resentful in the relationship. All right, so they have good boundaries where they can reflect and go like, what sits well with me? What is possible for me? Okay, I can do the dishes 3 times a week. Can we negotiate this in some way? If there is a hard boundary, like a non-negotiable, that is going to negatively influence their mental health or well-being in any way, they will choose themselves and their mental health over the relationship. So say, for example, for them, it is not suitable for a partner to cheat in a relationship. And that's like a hard no. I'm not going to accept that. They will then say, you know what? They will say that at the beginning of the relationship, like, you know what? These are my boundaries. I will not be with somebody who cheats or lies or, you know, does any of these things. If this happens in our relationship, I'm going to have to take care of myself and leave. Okay, so if that does happen in the relationship, they are just going to stick to that boundary, okay, because they love themselves. Their mental health is extremely important to them. They also know that they are a valuable human being and that they can be happy on them by themselves. They have a very good support structure, which means that they don't lose themselves in a relationship. They can still function without the relationship. And even though it might be really sad to leave a relationship, and like every single other human being, they will grieve the relationship because that's what we do when we experience loss. But it's not going to be as intense as, say, the anxious, preoccupied individual who has this huge abandonment wound and feels like they are going to die if they lose the relationship. The anxious, preoccupied individual will therefore sacrifice themselves and overstep their own boundaries, people please, and stay in situations that are not good for them because they have that abandonment wound and they want to prioritize the relationship over their own well-being. Okay, so I'm just drawing that comparison so you can see like a securely attached individual will act differently. They will consider themselves just as much as they consider the health of the other person and the relationship. All right, and if something is toxic to them or unhealthy for them, they can stop that more easily than any other person, and they can just move away and create something different in their lives. Number 4, vulnerability. So I feel like I count incorrectly on these videos. If I do, I'm sorry. The next point, let's just go, this is number 4, vulnerability. Because they in childhood, when they were very vulnerable, right? When we're an infant or when we are a little child, we are extremely vulnerable, right? We can't take care of ourselves, so we're very reliant on other people. And because in childhood they got a lot of nurturing in that space, in their most vulnerable state, they have learned that vulnerability is safe and it actually feels good. When I am vulnerable with my parents, they will come to me and comfort me or feed me or something. So, or fulfill my need, not something, fulfill my need. That's basically it, right? So I'm safe in expressing vulnerability. Unlike, say, the dismissive avoidant who has received hostility or they were dismissed when they were being vulnerable, they were neglected, and they have negative association to vulnerability. This means they don't want to open up to their partner. They don't want to ask for help because that didn't feel good. So the association is negative. Whereas the secure person has positive association with vulnerability, so they can go to their partner and ask for help. They can also go to their partner and say like, hey, I'm really struggling with this. Can we work it out together? Or I'm struggling at work and I really need your help. Or, you know what, this thing happened with my friend and I don't really know how to handle it. Or even in the relationship, they can say something like, you know what, we keep coming up against the same block and I really want us to work through it. However, I just don't know what to do. Can we work out a plan together? Okay, so they are willing to be open about their shortcomings. They are willing to be open about the needs that they need fulfilled through another person. Whereas, say, the dismissive avoidant is so conditioned to fulfill their own needs and they don't feel safe to ask for their needs to be fulfilled through another person. Okay, so you get what I'm saying here. So number 5, emotional regulation. The securely attached person really feels safe within themselves and being on their own or being in relationship and just confident in their life because they know that they can regulate their emotions. It's easy for them to be in various situations in life because they know, like, okay, whatever emotion comes up in me, I know what to do with it. I'm not going to self-destruct because I have these emotions. Which brings me to the next point, which is number 6, and that is behavior coping mechanisms. So behavior coping mechanisms can be something like, what are we doing when our emotions rise? Do I explode in anger? Do I scroll endlessly through whatever social media platform you're on? Do I eat a cookie or exercise to the point of exhaustion or drink excessively or whatever it might be? Okay. What is that thing that I'm doing? What I've mentioned are unhealthy ways of coping, and they are unhealthy because they might work in this moment, but in the long run, they are detrimental to ourselves, to our bodies, and to our goals or to relationships. So a securely attached individual knows how to cope with their emotions in healthy ways. So maybe they'll go for a walk, journal, meditate, do something that is going to be good for them in this moment as well as in future moments. When there is something that is happening inside the relationship, they will tend to move towards their partner and communicate through it and try to resolve it as a team rather than avoiding the problem or being excessively needy for the problem to be resolved immediately. So avoiding the problem, dismissive avoidance. Remember, every time you hear avoidance, you might as well associate that to the dismissive avoidant, and sometimes fearful avoidance might have these traits to avoid certain things. And then the anxious, preoccupied individual is more like the pursuer. They will go towards. So if there is something bothering the anxious person, they will want to resolve it right now. Right now it needs to be resolved, okay? Because they are acting constantly from that abandonment wound, which feels like, oh my God, if I don't resolve this, I'm going to end the relationship. The relationship is going to end rather, and it feels very unsafe and it needs to be fixed now, okay? Where the securely attached person can take a step back and say, oh, we're experiencing this problem. And because in their mind, their subconscious mind, they have experienced problems and misattunements with their parents or caregivers when they were growing up, and that always got resolved. So now they think like, oh, we're just experiencing this like kind of blips, and it's uncomfortable, but you know what, I can deal with it. If there is time to deal with it now, we can speak about it now. If not, maybe we can speak about it after work or even on the weekend. So there isn't this like pressure to resolve conflict. And I feel like I've gotten ahead of myself a little bit to conflict. And I'll circle back to that when it's back on the list again. Okay, so what does it mean, number 7, for their mental health? Okay, so if we have a low level of trauma, which mostly securely attached individuals have, I know, it's like these unicorn people, where are they? If that's not you, don't worry about it. If you're like, okay, I don't do this, I don't do that, I don't do this point, like, don't stress about it. You know, this is just a school. We're learning as we go. We are all on somewhere on this journey. We're just progressing. This is why we watch these videos, right? To just help us a little bit further along our path. So mental health, they usually have low levels of trauma. You know, they usually have good upbringing where their parents were secure and they were loving and they were caring. And perhaps they have experienced some kind of relationship or attachment breach or some kind of trauma, maybe in school, somebody bullied them. Maybe somewhere further on in their life, they had a difficult relationship. So something in their life, maybe a death, a car accident, something might have happened. There might have been some kind of physical, mental, or emotional trauma that they did go through. But that is more like, it's not a characteristic of a securely attached or attachment style. It's more like on an individual basis, right? Most of the time there is this low level of trauma. So when we have low level of trauma, of course, there isn't so much negative charge within our bodies. Therefore, it's easier for us to regulate our own emotions. Our nervous system is mostly calm. And because they were mirrored how to cope in healthy ways with their emotions in childhood, I see this as like the gears of a car. They know how to switch those gears. Whereas, say, somebody who's experienced a lot of trauma, they might feel like they are in 5th gear and their one hand is pulling up the handbrake and the other foot is on the accelerator and they're kind of like going nowhere. That is another way of describing the sympathetic nervous system overdrive, like which a lot of fearful avoidance are in, and a lot of the anxious preoccupied individuals are in. They kind of like this they're feeling like constantly this like drive towards something or running away from something within their bodies. Whereas the dismissive avoidance can sometimes be in this chronic kind of freeze mode or stilling, where if you look at the car, they can't get into gear. They're just on this stop. And the securely attached individuals can switch gears. And that's the most important part when we look at our nervous system. It's not that we are in one gear. We can go from being a little bit aggravated, maybe we're in traffic and we have to get to work on time for a presentation. And yes, that is going to have a spike in our nervous system, that irritation, oh, there's a spike, but then I can regulate myself back, notice. So it first takes that awareness of like, oh, my emotions are rising. And now, what do I do with that? Do I just continue thinking negative thoughts and working myself up? Or can I step back, take a breath, and accept the situation and regulate myself in that situation? Okay, so that's more or less nervous system regulation. Emotional regulation is having the awareness and then having the ability to shift those gears from being agitated to coming back to neutral, or perhaps even in the evening from being very active during the day. You know, it's not only about being agitated, but just busy in life. And then can I shift gears when I go to sleep? Can I shift gears and be in my rest and digest nervous system where I can relax and sleep. Okay, so securely attached individuals can do that. They can shift those gears very adequately, which means their mental health overall is thriving. If our mental health is good, low stress levels, that means our physical bodies don't experience so many issues. The immune system is usually quite high because we're not only coping with stress all the time, right? So we can rest, digest, repair our system when we're sleeping. We can relax our bodies, and that means that our overall health is better. This is why it's so important to always try to move towards secure attachment for all over health and well-being. Sure, this is getting long already, so I'm going to continue, which brings me to number 8, addiction and eating disorders. Because people have low levels of trauma, securely attached people have low levels of trauma, they know how to regulate their emotions, they don't have as many core wounds, which is basically like these emotional or psychological wounds that we develop through trauma, through intense experiences. They are less likely to have problems with addiction and eating disorders. Number 9, communication. So communication is usually open and friendly. They have this great balance between being assertive and being friendly at the same time. They don't have to be aggressive because they don't feel like they have to prove anything. They know that they are safe. They know that they are empowered, they can have control over their life to a certain degree. So their communication is usually quite collaborative, and they try to see both points of view and work to create a balance, or like fulfill common interests, for a lack of a better phrase. All right, so then 10. Relationship style. At this I laughed because I looked at YouTube before I made this video for securely attached people, and the one little short, sorry, I can't credit you because I can't remember, but if you know this one, please credit them down below. So the one little short said, securely attached people are usually taken because they like relationships, they're good in relationships, and they are in long-term relationships. So they're not always taken, but the relationship style, usually they like relationships. This is different to, say, the anxious, preoccupied individuals who crave relationships and they feel very uncomfortable being alone. Securely attached individuals don't mind being by themselves. They would rather wait and find a person that complements them, that they align with, that they can build with, rather than just getting into a relationship to be in a relationship to pacify their fear of abandonment, or feeling like they're not good enough, or their fear of being lonely. Okay, so if the relationship style is, I am happy on my own, I have a lot of other great friendships, maybe family relationships, I have other great connections, so my emotional needs are fulfilled. However, I do like to be in a relationship. If a person comes along that is really complementary to me, I will explore that connection. 11. Okay, now I'm circling back to conflict. And this is what I wrote down for conflict, and maybe this is just going to make sense in your head. When they're thinking about conflict, they're thinking about, in a relationship, in a romantic relationship, right? They're thinking of what is going to benefit us. So they're thinking as a team. It's me and you against a common problem that we are experiencing in our relationship versus me or you. Me or you is a sign of an insecure attachment styles. So a fearful avoidant is going to say me versus you, okay? Because there's this fear associated with relationship. And because in the past they had to defend themselves a lot in relationships. Remember, the fearful avoidant had these people in their lives, whether they're caretakers or parents, where the person who was giving them care was also the person who was very scary. So the fearful avoidant might feel like, I have to defend myself and fight with, against you. So it's this me versus you when there is conflict. Usually they're trying to create a nice unit and a team, but when there is conflict, they struggle to maintain that me and you as a team, and it becomes this me versus you, and they're usually volatile and fight. Whereas a securely attached individual can maintain that we are a team. This is just a bloopsie in our relationship. We can sort this out together. Okay, so the dismissive avoidant, when there is conflict, they will go, only me. Okay, how do I preserve myself? Remember, they've been neglected and they've learned that I am safe when I am in my own space, dealing with my own emotions, looking after myself. So in conflict, they will go, oh, how do I self-preserve? Because nobody else is going to do it for me. Nobody else cares about me. That's why they go to self-preservation. And anxious preoccupieds will abandon themselves and focus on only you. Only you are important. You are my happiness. You are my safety. Therefore, I'm going to abandon myself and focus only on you and how can I people please you. Right? So again, securely attached people can maintain that us through conflict as well, until or unless it influences them negatively, and then it becomes, okay, how can I look after myself if it breaks their non-negotiables. 11, they are usually self-confident people. 12, they are congruent, which means that whatever they say, they also do. And it's easier for them to do that because they have very little past trauma or core wounds, right? So I'm going to refer trauma, core wounds, it's basically the same thing. They have very little of that, so it's easier for them to just say what they mean and do what they say. 13, they tend to be consistent. 14, consistent, let's just go into relationships maybe a little bit. So when they are consistent, that means their behavior is more or less the same towards you in relationships. They don't flip-flop, like one day I want to be in a relationship, the other day I don't want to be in a relationship, and you're like, well, what is happening here? Do you like me? Don't you like me? You flip-flop and I just get a different version of you, and the signals are very mixed. Securely attached individuals are consistent, and it gives you that idea of like, I know what to expect, which fearful avoidance sometimes, and anxious preoccupied individuals might find that boring, that consistency boring. It's like, oh, where's the spark? Where's the mystery? Okay, that mystery is just a sign of addictive tendencies that you've accumulated through childhood, and you've learned that this addiction and this toxicity means love. And you have to uncouple that if you want to have a healthy relationship. Moving on to number 14, they are usually quite honest because they take responsibility, they are accountable, they know how to manage their emotions. So most of the time, they are quite honest, right? They're not saints, but it's easier for them to just be honest. 15, last one is breakups. Breakups, like I've mentioned, are tough for everybody, for most human beings, even for dismissive avoidance, which I will go into in different videos. But even dismissive avoidance struggle with breakups in their own way. However, securely attached individuals might find breakups tough because, of course, we attach to a person. We have these fantasies about how our life is going to look like with a person. But they are willing to walk away from relationships if the relationship is costing them their own peace, their own mental health, or other problems in their lives. They will not stay in toxic relationships and sacrifice themselves. So they're tough but manageable in breakups. They also have a huge support group of other people, other activities that fulfill them. So they are not only reliant on the relationship to fulfill them and to define them. All right, so this is already half an hour. I hope that you enjoy these points. So when you're thinking like, whoa, this is quite a lot, what do I do with this? What you can do is think about, what is a step that I can take towards becoming this person? How can I mirror this in my own life? Or how can I look for these traits in the partner that I'm going to date? Or if you are in a relationship with a partner, you can send them this video or just have a conversation and go like, oh, you know what? I have realized that in conflict, this is happening with us. Or I've realized that our boundaries are like this. And can we maybe shift it? Can we take this month to focus on this one thing? Okay, on an individual level, you can also just take one part of this and think, oh, okay, I don't take accountability. Usually I get defensive when my partner addresses something with me. Maybe in some way I can become a little bit more accountable. And what that looks like with your partner is saying, hey, I'm working on this accountability. I will most probably still react with being defensive most of the time because it's just such a habit, but I'm going to try. And then congratulate yourself. Even if 1 out of 5 times you become accountable, or you set a boundary, or you do any of these things that I've mentioned to mirror the securely attached person, celebrate it. You are breaking down patterns that have been ingrained in you for how long? For however long you've had this insecure attachment style. So step by step by step. Of course, it goes quicker when you go for coaching or you do my online course. But if you're doing this by yourself, well done. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of determination to work on yourself. So make sure that you celebrate your wins and that you're gentle with yourself. Because let's face it, if you had an insecure attachment or insecure upbringing, you've had enough toughness, hardness, punishment. It's time to take the pressure off and just become gentle. Gentleness is a sign of healing. Okay, remember that. And all of these changes are going to happen a lot faster if you just begin to nurture yourself. You need to nurture your inner child, create safety internally with your inner dialogue. That's how you reparent yourself. Don't be the same parent. The stuff that's going on in your head means that, or it's the voices of your mother or your father or your caregiver or your grandmother, whoever was there when you were growing up, maybe even your siblings. Or perhaps it's from your past relationship. Somebody was negative, and that's a self-critical voice that has been recorded and is just auto-playing on repeat. So you have to become aware of that, of how you break yourself down, and just go like, oh, this is an old tape. I am going to choose something different. I'm going to take a breath into my body and just choose a gentle path. I'm doing the best that I can, and slowly, progressively, it's going to shift. Just keep chipping away at it. All right, so I promised you I'm going to go over the parenting style. I'm not going to take too long, but let's get into it. All right, so the parenting style to create this amazing human being that is so well put together. If this is you, well done. And well done to your parents as well. So parenting to create secure attachment means attunement. What does attunement mean? When I'm a parent and I hear my infant cry or my child is upset, or just even if they're not upset, I am going to check in and I'm going to see, what do they need? If it's an infant, I'm going to go to the infant and see, are they hungry? Are they thirsty? Does the diaper need to change? Do they need love and connection? And as best as possible, I'm going to fulfill that need. But securely attached individuals didn't get perfect parenting. So if you're a parent and you think like, oh my goodness, I have to just be perfect all the time, you don't. What's necessary is that when there is a misattunement, okay, in your relationship or in your parenting style, and you go like, oh, I missed that, or like I messed up over here. It's to go back and revisit that and say like, oh, Johnny, if this is your child, Johnny, oh, I shouted in the car. I'm sorry about that. I was upset. It's not about you. Can we revisit this conversation? Or just speak to a child like you would speak to a child, not an adult. But can we talk about it? Tell me again what was happening. Okay, so this is repair. So they have this attunement. When there is a misattunement, there is some kind of repair. And you can also use that in your relationship. There is a misattunement, it's normal, you're human, and then we can revisit that and we can just repair. Okay, of course, with repair, we want to act differently. We don't want to just apologize and have it just be like this thing that we just, oh, sorry. Okay, we need to work on those patterns. If I'm volatile, I need to work on my anger. And that's the base kind of repair, but there is this opportunity of repairing ruptures. Securely attached individuals received mirroring. So when the child's like, oh, I'm a Superman, and then the parent is like, oh, you're such a strong Superman, you're a great Superman. Or if the child is upset, or the infant is even upset. I've watched this happen with some of our friends, and I could see the one girl who received secure parenting, when the infant was upset and they were crying, she made a sad face, okay? So she went, and then she smiled to show the infants like, oh, I see you're sad, and I'm friendly, I'm warm, I'm here. So there was this kind of mirroring, which makes the individual feel very seen. And the parents taught the child how to emotionally regulate from there. Okay, like, oh, I can see you angry. So what are we going to do about this anger? Okay, they taught the child how to regulate, and also the parent regulated their own emotions, and kids learn mostly through seeing. So that's how they could see like, oh, this is what mom does when she gets angry or frustrated. They encode it into their system, like this is what I do when I'm feeling sad or angry or anything else but peaceful. Parents also validated their feelings, which made the securely attached individuals feel safe, and they had good boundaries, and there was healthy autonomy. Okay, so that means that you are allowed to be free. Some of us didn't receive that. So for a lot of us, we were the parent to our parents, which means that you were parentified, and you had to worry about taking care of your parents in order for them to take care of you. And then you felt like you were trapped in that situation. I couldn't have my own freedom because I'm responsible for my parents' emotions. And that was done either through explicit ways of just saying, your parents telling you like, oh, you're making me feel this way, or you have to do these things to make me feel good, or in some other way where you could see like, oh, your mom is lonely because or your dad is lonely because they went through a divorce and now you don't want to upset them, or perhaps there was another sibling that was sick or just very energetically demanding, and you decided, oh, I'm going to be the peacekeeper in the family. So that means I didn't have my freedom. I didn't have my freedom to express, to go and experience life and just figure out who I am. And they also had age-appropriate responsibility. That means if a child is supposed to color in, I don't know those phases, but if the child is supposed to color in at one phase, they are allowed to color in. Okay, we're not going to expect a 3-year-old child to ride a bicycle, a 2-wheeler, right? Or we're not going to expect a 10-year-old to do taxes. It's just age-inappropriate responsibility. Age-inappropriate responsibility is if you had to maybe take care of your other siblings and become the parent when you were actually just trying to figure out yourself as well, or take care of your parents. So there can be lots of that. lots of different examples of that, but let's just for this video keep it to that. So when we have age-appropriate responsibility, it builds confidence, because that means like, oh, I am capable of doing these things. Okay, I have the power to do these things. When we have age-inappropriate responsibility, it makes us feel overburdened and lowers our self-confidence, because we feel like life is too big for us to handle, and then we move around through our lives feeling very overwhelmed and overburdened and feel like we don't know what's going on and how to handle these life stresses. Okay, so that's basically it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to end it here before I say anything else. Thank you so much for your time and spending it with me, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave me some comments below, and if you're curious about anything else, you're going through something in your relationships that is your relationship that you want answers for, please leave it down below as well. I'm sending you big love. I'll see you again.